Commissioner Chun, can we test your audio and video, please?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Ono, can we test your audio and video, please? Your video.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Chair, we can begin.
Thanks. Good afternoon. I hereby call this meeting of the Reapportionment Commission to order. It's 1 p.m. on January 13th, 2022. This meeting is being conducted by video conference and telephone. I would like to remind the commissioners to keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. Hello, everybody, commissioners, fellow commissioners. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Chair Muguishi,
Present.
Commissioner Chip Chase, excused. Commissioner Chun,
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Here, thank you.
Commissioner Kota,
Here.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Here.
Commissioner Nonaka,
Present.
Commissioner Ono,
Here.
Commissioner Rathbun.
Present.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioners, pursuant to Act 220 Session Laws of Hawaii 2021, you are required to disclose if anyone is present with you for this meeting. Commissioners, is anyone present for you for this meeting? Okay, hearing nobody else, I'll disclose again, as per usual. I have my Assistant Vice President of Government and External Relations, Matt Sasaki, here in the room with me. Additionally, pursuant to Act 220, we will be meeting remotely using interactive conference technology. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the Office of Elections website at elections.hawaii.gov shortly after the conclusion of this meeting. As a reminder to the public, your microphone will be muted until you are called upon. Now that we have taken care of some housekeeping matters, I would like to note that we'll be taking public testimony after agenda item 5, the presentation of modified proposed final legislative and congressional reapportionment plans by the Technical Committee Permitted Interaction Group. That will allow the public to hear the presentation before they provide their comment. So I would also like to remind the public that we will not be voting on any final plans today, because pursuant to HRS section 92-2.5, any deliberation and decision-making may only occur at a meeting subsequent to the one in which the findings and recommendations of the permitted interaction group were made. So with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Chair,
Agenda item 3 is reports.
I would like to note that Commissioner Chip Chase has joined the meeting.
Great, thanks. Okay, so we're moving on to agenda item 3 now, reports by the Apportionment Advisory Councils. So we have invited each advisory council, Hawaii, Maui, Kauai, and Oahu, to provide feedback on matters affecting redistricting for each basic island unit. We have planned to allow each advisory council to present at our commission meetings. Would any advisory council like to present? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. As referenced, no apportionment advisory councils have met since our last meeting on January 6, 2022. So we will move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 4 is approval of the minutes for the meeting of January 6, 2022. So included in the meeting packet were the minutes of the January 6th meeting. Is there any discussion on those minutes? If there's no discussion, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, accept.
Is there a second?
I second. I seconded.
Okay, thanks. So there's a motion by Commissioner Nakota, second by Commissioner Ono. Any further discussion? Okay, would the secretary please take the vote?
Commissioner Chip Chase,
Aye.
Commissioner Chun,
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Nakota,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Naka,
Aye.
Commissioner Ono,
Aye.
Commissioner Rathbun,
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Muguishi.
Aye,
Chair, the motion carries.
thank you. So we'll continue on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5. Presentation of modified proposed final legislative and congressional reapportionment plans by the Technical Committee Permitted Interaction Group. And before I read my preamble to that entire presentation, I just want to express my sincere thanks and actually wonder about the of the technical committee's incredible performance, where after changing our extraction numbers based on a long discussion that we had at our last meeting and the best data that we feel we have available, this committee was able to go back into session and redraw the plans in a manner that meets all the constitutional requirements and took into account a lot of public testimony that had been happening over the past few weeks. And I just want to express personally, and I think on behalf of the whole commission, our gratitude to you for your work on that. And with that, I will say that today, the Technical Committee Permitted Interaction Group will be presenting its findings and recommendations regarding the legislative redistricting plans it developed. Please keep in mind again that no action can be taken today. Specifically, HRS Section 92-2.5 requires that any deliberation and decision-making may only occur at a meeting subsequent to the one in which the findings and recommendations of the Permitted Interaction Group are made. We are going to hear about new redistricting maps that are in draft form from the Technical Committee Permitted Interaction Group. We will have a presentation first of the map led by our staff, led by David Rosenbrock. And after that, each of the commissioners, the 4 of them that are on the committee, will have an opportunity to contribute their perspective on behalf of themselves and the group as a whole. So again, just a reminder, this group that we're so grateful for, the commissioners on the committee are Commissioners Nakota, Nonaka, Ono, and Rathbun. So thanks again. Thanks so much for your time and your dedicated service to get these modified maps out. So with that, I would like to turn it over to David Rosenbrock so he can do the introduction of the proposed plan.
Aloha, Chair. Today we will be providing a presentation of the 2021 legislative districts produced by the Technical Permitted Interaction Group. The proposed final plan has been modified to use the Hawaii resident population base adopted by the Commission on 6 January 2022. I'm going to turn it over to Royce to go through the slideshow and we'll go on from there.
Okay, thanks, David. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just have a few slides just to introduce what has happened here. So the technical group, as you've heard, has proposed legislative district plans. All 8 plans, meaning 4 basic island units, Senate and House, are using the new modified permanent resident population base that was adopted on January 6th. However, not all of them have had district changes, district boundary changes. As we saw, the Oahu population changed drastically with these new military numbers, and that switched a House seat to the Big Island. So the 3 big changes were the Oahu Senate and House because of this larger extraction, and then the extra seat on Hawaii House. So those were the 3 outlined in red below. At the time I presented this is a slide from the last meeting. I put NA, it was actually over 100% because there were a lot of changes needed to get these back under the deviations. But you can see the other plans, basically there wasn't much change. And indeed, when the technical group went back in and looked, they made no changes to the other 5 plans. The changes that they did make, as I mentioned, Hawaii House, they brought the deviation down to 4.74%. Oahu House brought it down to 4.02%. And the Oahu Senate down to 4.93%. They will each be talking more about those changes. The maps are available as PDFs and also now as interactive maps online on the reapportionment website. And with that, I will turn it over to the technical group.
Thank you, members of the technical group. I will now turn it over to you. So please proceed if you'd like to add anything.
Okay, this Commissioner Nakota. It was, we got to thank the other 3 commissioners and staff. We even met on Sunday. So it was a long process. It was an easy process. For the last 4 or 5 days, we've been working really hard on this. I'm going to defer to Commissioner Nonaka on telling you how the Senate and the House rules really played out. It was not easy. As you guys know, the west side on Oahu grew a lot, as well as Central Oahu. And so that's, if you look at the maps, that is going to be indicative of what we've done. And I will, one of the other commissioners, go forward with this.
All right, so I can start on the Big Island. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Commissioner Kota, too. for your words. Let's start with the Senate. The Senate is easy. We did not make any changes to the Senate map for the Big Island. So unless there's any questions, we can go to the House. All right, on the House map, adding another House district wasn't as easy as, or it's not as simple as you think it's going to be. One of the effects, the general effects that happens is the areas with population contract because there's a need to build the districts around the areas of population. So starting in Lower Puna, which is a place that makes sense given the volcano and the inability to move the line south of the volcano. We started in Lower Puna where the population begins and then moved out and kept Hawaiian Paradise Park intact on the eastern side. That did not allow for the rest of Ainaloa, Orchid Island Estates, Hawaiian Acres, those other areas to be included with Puna. So we kept those areas together as much as possible and then added Keao and the eastern side of Hilo into that district to make up House District 3. House District 2 on this map consolidated, again, because of the additional House seat, consolidated around Hilo. So most of Hilo proper and the neighborhoods, the residential neighborhoods of Hilo are in House District 2 now, and it's a very small geographic House district because of that. Naturally, going up the coast, the next boundary is going to be where House District 2 ends, and House District 1 stretches up the Hamakua coast and goes all the way to Waipio Valley, which is traditionally where it's been the last 10 years. And an important constraint here, which I think is overlooked sometimes, is that you have to take in the population all the way to Waipio Valley because there is only one way in and out, and that's through Honoka'a. So I did look at some of the community maps that were submitted, and some of them had put the Waipio area in with like Kohala, which geographically looks like it makes sense, but there is no road between Waipio Valley and Kukui Haile and those communities and Kohala. So you got to connect those with the Hamakua Coast and Honoka'a. So where that district ends, House District 8 picks up, and that's primarily Waimea, Waikoloa Village, and the towns of Hawi on the northern part of the island. So it's a northern Kona district. And then moving down into House District 7, there was not enough room in House District 8 to include the resort areas of Waikoloa. So if you see that little finger that goes up on the west side of Queen Kaahumanu Highway, those are Waikoloa Village, Malalani, those resort communities up in Waikoloa. So that starts the district. It stays on one side of Queen Kaahumanu Highway and then goes down into Kona and basically expands down into Kona until we get enough population to stop. And that's right kind of in, this basically splits Kailua Kona right into two. And so the line starts at Kailua Bay and then goes up into the mountains where the population ends. And then we start a new House District 6, which is the rest of Kailua, and then the kind of coffee belt towns of Lualoa, Kalakekua, Honalo, all those areas. And again, we start running out of population. So we stayed makai of the highway and took in the communities of Napopo, and kind of half of Hononau, all the way to the Hononau Junction, if you know where that is, in South Kona. So that's the boundary on the southern side. So it's everything makai of that on the highway is with House District 6. And then House District 5 picks up at that point, is taking Mauka of the highway and then takes the whole southern side of the island, which is sparsely populated. So it's not an ideal district geographically because it is large, but just the way the population shook out when you start from the other side of the island in Puna, it kind of shakes out this way. And to get enough population for one House district, you have to go all the way around the southern side of the island and then over to the Mountain View area on the east side. So it is a very large geographic district. Any questions on the Big Island House? Okay, if not, moving on, we can go to Maui. Maui Senate and House did not change, so I'm not going to comment on those. Kauai House and Senate did not change either, so we're going to skip those. And then, okay, so we can start on the Senate side on Oahu. We did not start in Makapu on the Senate map, mainly because it creates a lot of compression on the middle of the island, and we'll see that in the House map also and the effects of that. You would end up with a Senate district that runs from like Ka'ava all the way into Mililani or Wahiwa if we don't do this. And so the wraparound actually expanded and took in more of Hawaii Kai. So it's a Hawaii Kai and Kailua district, as it has been for the last 20 plus years. So that's where we started on the east side, and then moving up the North Shore to kind of illustrate what happens here. Because of the increase, there was an additional almost 6,000 people that were extracted from the east side of the island. The map had to consolidate around Senate District 24, or expand 24 had to expand in order to take in more population. And so that pushed the Senate 23 boundary a little bit further up the coast. And then that district had to expand all the way across to Kaena Point in order to take in enough population. So that district continued to push down and actually came all the way down and had to take a little bit of the areas around Schofield and Mililani in order to have enough population. So if we needed to take more population, you would have a North Shore district that ran all the way down into Wahiwa or Mililani, which can be argued causes a separate set of problems. And so this is kind of where it got difficult, because there's a lot of population missing at this point, and both in the Senate and the House map, you'll see big changes. Senate 17 had to push down further into Mililani town in order to take in more population, because there was a huge hole in population, like 10,000 missing from that district. So now it's a Wahiwa, Mililani Mauka, and Mililani town Senate district primarily. And then Senate 18 is the next district coming down and takes in the rest of Mililani, the communities of Rokunia, Waipio, Waikele, all of those areas, and actually had to take in a little bit of Waipahu in order to make up the numbers that it needed. And that's something that I was going to mention later, but just in general, when you look at these deviations, and there's been comment about the deviations could be made better, or maps have been submitted with lower deviations. The reality is that's true if you don't take into account minimizing, splitting even just streets up, because if you want to get to a zero deviation or as close as possible, you have to really take in and make very small changes that sometimes don't make sense. And so trying to use the other criteria, having a deviation overall, I think the Senate deviation is still under 5%. We use that wiggle room in order to keep not make micro splits of communities where there's larger communities that are split, but sometimes there's a street that you can keep together by not lowering the deviation and helping it make more sense. So that's why some of these districts like 18 is -2, because we didn't want to go any higher and start to take in more of an area that should be with another district. Moving down, I guess we can go back out to the west side here, Royce, because then we can move back across to the East Honolulu. But starting from the west side, pretty straightforward. You got to start from Makapu and then the eastern side of the island and move down and take in as much of the west side as possible in order to get to the right deviation. And then moving down, same thing with 21 here. It's Makakilo and Kapolei, and deviation is a little bit higher, but we wanted to keep, again, if we wanted to shift population from 21 to 22, you need to take either some streets away from Makakilo or Kapolei and not have a dividing line near Ko'olina. So it just made more sense to leave the deviation the way it was to keep those communities together. Senate 20 is pretty straightforward because it's on a peninsula. So you move out until you have enough population, and now and it didn't change significantly, took in a little bit more on the northern side. Senate 19 is Waipahu, and that moves across into parts of Pearl City there to take in enough population, which gets us to 16, which is more of Waimalu, Pearl City, Waipahu, or Aiea, and 15 kind of wraps around the military base, the airport. It takes in all of the lower part of the H1 in central Oahu, and then moving across to 14. You have that Kalihi, Wānglua area, which has traditionally been that way, didn't change a lot. And then into town, we had to make some small adjustments, but a lot of these districts just had to be tweaked a little bit. There wasn't significant change to the geographic areas, but in these communities of along the Pali and Manoa, Kalihi, all those areas, we try to keep together as much as possible. So that gets us back around pretty much to Oh, and then 12 is what is Waikiki and the Kaka'ako area with pretty strong dividing lines on main roads. And then that gets us back pretty much around to Senate 9, which is the East Oahu Senate district that goes from where 25 begins down to Diamond Head. Any questions?
I did, Jill. I'm sorry, my hand is raised, but it's more for clarification. So I'm questioning Chair Mugaishi. So all the testimony that typically would have gone previous to this, if testifiers have questions and need to change their testimony based on what Dylan is presenting, is that allowed? And should we be allowing them to ask questions after each area or no? I mean, I just want clarification on how people are going to ask questions.
Well, they're going to be allowed to testify, which is today. I mean, we typically in these don't have a question and answer period. We have the opportunity for people to testify so that we can hear their concerns and the technical committee can take those back and consider their concerns. So there will be an opportunity for them to testify after all of the maps are presented. And sure, they can change based on what they heard. They can change their testimony. I mean, we wouldn't know if they changed it or not because it's the first time we're hearing it. But we're also going to have 3 commission meetings next week where they'll be allowed to continue to testify and bring issues based on any modifications of the maps they may be seeing that are being made.
Okay, so and then if I have a question as a commissioner, do we wait until after the whole thing is presented as well?
No, for commission members, whenever a technical committee member says, are there any questions? They're asking the other commission members if they have questions. So you're free to ask questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Dylan. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, we can move to the Oahu House. All right, the Oahu House, we'll start over same on the windward side, starting at the Makapu Point. This is going to push population because of the additional extraction on the windward side. Additional parts of Kailua had to be added in to 51. Same thing with 50. 50 had to expand and take in more of Kaneohe in order to have enough population. If you look on the east side, all of these house districts do have a negative deviation. And again, that was done to minimize the amount of change and disruption going up the coastline, because you have the same compression when you get to the middle of the island as you did with the Senate map. So 49 is still most of Kaneohe, and then moving up to 48. Again, that line moved north significantly because of the increase of population that 49 and 50 had to take. So now it goes all up to Kahana Bay, which is geographically a large change just because there's not a lot of population in there. So we have to move further up the coast in order to get enough population to fill that district up. And then starting from there, 47 wraps around and had to again move and take in most of Wailua because it needed more population and was short because the bottom end of it got taken out. So that moves across, takes in most of Wailua, and then 46 also had a big hole of population. So it had to expand out and take in the west side all the way out to kind of point. So you see that expansion there. There is a little bit of population up there, which helped to add and fill House District 46 up to the right population. And then that moves us down into House District 38, which is Mililani Mauka and Mililani Town. And again, these districts, you basically had a district somewhat disappear visually from this area because there was a Mililani Town and district that went out to Wailua. And so that district was folded into the surrounding, which is now 46, 38, and 37. And so visually, it looks like a district kind of disappeared here. So you have 38, which is Mililani Town and Mauka, and then 37, which is the rest of Mililani Town and a piece of Mauka, which goes then down into Kunia and the Waipio area to bring in enough population. And again, all the population here, sometimes visually these maps are confusing. It stretches into the Ko'olaus, but everything is kind of condensed around the H2 freeway there in Mililani Town. And so coming down, we get to the Waipahu district there, which looks funny because it goes out onto the peninsula, but that's all. It's a very dense area of population. And then Kevin, did you want to take over here and talk about West Oahu?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. When we got down, the numbers were a little bit higher due to the way it was constructed from Makapu to the west. So the numbers were a little bit more challenging to balance out, but we've got them where they're fairly close. House, sorry, Royce, can you lift up a little bit? 42 didn't change a whole lot. 41 had to go over westward to accommodate the additional populations. We were able to get that deviation way down. And then 44 and 45 didn't, the numbers are different now, but they didn't change a whole lot. So we had to basically take the overflow from going from Makapu West and fill it in through the central and west Oahu.
Mhm.
Then yeah, I think Diane's gonna take over here, going to town.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, from the beginning, we knew the population had greatly increased on the west side of Oahu. And then with the most recent extractions, the most heavily impacted island was Oahu, which resulted in one less House seat on Oahu. So as Dylan said, our map starts at Makapu Point. And I just wanted to say, we really did hear and take to heart all of the public testimony that was presented, both orally and written. And we definitely heard from all of you who you know, so faithfully come forth in all of the commission meetings and public hearings from Kailua, Waimanalo, as well as Hawaii Kai. So the House District 18, which we were formerly calling 17, and which is the current 17, is the Hawaii Kai district. And it starts at Makapu Point, includes Kalama Valley, as well as Port Lock, you know, all of Hawaii Kai till I think it's Aina Post Street and Hahaioni Street. So that is the Hawaii Kai district. I'm not going to go through all of the changes heading westward, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things, and this isn't just in this iteration, but in the December 22nd presentation, that based on all of the public testimony, as you all know, Manoa Valley is whole. We also heard from folks about Makali Mo'ili'ili, and that too is in one district now. And with all of these changes on Oahu, I also wanted to point out that the deviation is now roughly half of what it was in our previous iteration. So I think that's a great improvement. But we were really looking at all kinds of factors, such as, you know, whether the district is, you know, contiguous and compact, whether neighborhoods or communities were kept together, and trying to keep all of those things in mind, as well as the deviation. So could the deviation be better? I suppose, but then you sacrifice something else for that. So I think we've done the best we can. I also wanted to point out that and this is rather small, but, you know, again, someone came forward to testify that she lives way up in the northern part of Makakilo, and we didn't realize there was population there, but because our census block showed 0, but access to that area has to be from the Makakilo side and cannot be from the Nanakuli side. So thank you for, you know, everybody for pointing things like this out, because I think that's enabled us to present the map we do today. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for any of the 4 members of the technical committee?
Said one more thing I wanted to just address and bring up, for consideration, and there was some comment made about the congressional districts and all of not splitting House and Senate districts, and House districts being inside of Senate districts, and just from a practicality standpoint, the congressional districts are based on now a dramatically different population base than the House and Senate districts, right? So it's not possible, let alone practicable, to have the Senate, the congressional districts wholly contain House and Senate districts, just because there's such an imbalance of population, right? Most of the population was extracted from CD1, and so you're going to have a big imbalance, and it's just not going to match up to stay inside of the deviations. And the same is true of the House and the Senate. We have an unequal amount of House and Senate districts on Oahu, and so it's something that would be difficult, and you'd have to, even if you could do it for some, it definitely wouldn't be possible for all. So if you start from that and make that a guiding principle, it's going to be hard to follow. So that's something that we're definitely aware of, and we heard in the public comment process, but was discussed, and that's kind of conclusion we came to, is not necessarily practicable to make that happen.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for any of the four? Okay, thank you again. I just want to reiterate our deep gratitude for all this excellent work. So we're now going to allow for public testimony. A list of testifiers who have submitted their names before the meeting has been added to the chat. As technical issues may arise, we will give each testifier a few moments to try and resolve any connection issues. However, if the issues cannot be resolved, we will have to move on to the next testifier. If you would like to testify, please click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. If you are joining us by phone, please press *9. When recognized, please unmute your microphone before speaking. You may also turn on your video at this time. For the record, please state your first and last name and the items you will be testifying on. For those testifiers joining us by phone, we will not have your name, and we will be identifying you on the last 4 digits of your phone number. To ensure that we will have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. During public testimony, the commissioners will be muted, but may unmute themselves to ask any questions. Before we call the first testifier, I just want to remind the public that we will have actually 3 commission meetings next week. So you don't have to worry about, if you can't gather your thoughts and you're not sure because you just saw these maps, am I going to have my voice heard? There will be ample opportunity next week as well. And so with that, will the secretary please announce the first testifier?
First testifier is Bill Hicks, followed by Mia Lisaotis.
Aloha, Chair. I'm Bill Hicks. I know the restoration of Makapu'u Point as a boundary is now proposed on the House side, and the House population deviation has been cut in half. A sincere mahalo for the hard work which has been done to implement these improvements. This resolves half of the problems cited by the Kailua Neighborhood Board. The remaining half is to use Makapu'u Point as a boundary on the Senate map. One testifier last week called the Constitutional and Hawaii Revised Statute requirements a recipe for a successful reapportionment. I followed this recipe and submitted Oahu House and Senate plans that meet all of the requirements. I believe it is fully practicable to do so. One thing I did learn in the process is the requirements are more like ingredients, and you have to know what order to do things to make it a true recipe. I found that it is better to construct the House map first. It's the smallest size district and there is better granularity in its construction. Then on to the Senate map. When there happens to be exactly twice the number of House districts as there are Senate districts, like we now find on Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island, then simply join each 2 carefully crafted House districts to form a Senate district. Finally, construct the congressional districts using the House district building blocks. Do that last. When it is done the other way around, constructing the congressional districts first, it imposes unreasonable constraints on the House district construction. Doing it this way, every requirement can be checked off: nearly equal population, compact and contiguous districts that respect physical boundaries, every House district fully within a Senate district in a year like this, and every legislative district fully within 1 congressional district with the possible exception of 1. How did the technical committee score with the latest plan? Only 9 of 34 Oahu House districts are fully contained within a Senate district. Some Oahu House districts cross the boundaries of 4 different Senate districts. How would you like to be the senator from District 10 or District 15 or District 18 that each cross 6 House districts and having to coordinate with 6 representatives to effectively represent your district? On the Big Island and in Maui County, it seemingly would be practicable to pair 2 House districts to form a Senate district, but this was not done. It was not done once anywhere in the entire state. Why not? I believe you might agree with me, Chair, from one of your previous comments. The context was House District 51, but it is universally applicable. If you have a district that has synergy between the representative getting elected by the same constituency as the senator, you have a much better chance of affecting meaningful change for your community. And so I'm trying to understand why people would object to aligning their Senate map and their House map. I would think this would be a wonderful thing to do, and I agree. With 17 and 34 on Oahu, 3 and 6 on Maui, and 4 and 8 on the Big Island, why not do the best possible job with the House districts? And then simply pair 2 House districts to form each Senate district. Mahalo.
Next testifier is Lisaotis, followed by Representative Capella.
Hi, I'm Lisaotis, ironically testifying right by where the House district actually ends now at Makapu'u. So I appreciate you guys hearing the community's voice on not doing the wraparound for the House district, but I would also like you guys to follow suit for the Senate district and stop the wraparound, because I think that District 51 should go upwards towards north to keep the Ko'olau Poko and not wrap around to Hawaii Kai for the very reasons that we've all testified about. And you'll be hearing the same pushback for the same reasons. And I hope you really respect and honor all the decisions and testimony from all the other communities. Thank you.
Next testifier is Representative Capella, followed by Kimiona Kane.
Thank you so much, Chair, and hello to all the commissioners. I just wanted to jump on here. My name is Jaycapela. I represent the current House District 5. As someone who represents an incredibly rural district, you folks just made it a lot more rural and a lot larger as well. I wanted to talk to you about the practicability of the District 5 that you've currently put together. There's nothing pragmatic and there's nothing practical about what that district looks like. Geographically, I would represent about, or whoever has that seat would end up representing about 40% of the Big Island. For me currently, it takes me 2 hours to drive from Kona to Na'alehu. If you add in a district that goes from Kona all the way to Keau, basically Hilo, it's going to take 3 hours. There's absolutely no way that anyone, any representative can represent a district that is so enormous land-wise and so diverse. I'm very disappointed in the fact that we got an extra House seat on the Big Island, and some of the most economically disadvantaged parts of our communities, of my community, will now have less representation if you lump all of them together in the southern half for just one representative. We need to make sure that we have equal representation and that people that need the most help are getting it and getting that representation. So I truly hope that you folks can relook at the maps and find a way to not cut South Kona in half. You basically cut a community in half and lumped the South Kona representative in with the Hilo representatives. Geographically, there's just absolutely no way that someone can fully represent the needs of those very diverse communities. South Kona is very different from Keau and Hilo, just like Na'alehu is very different from Keau and Hilo. So I'm just asking if you can take a more pragmatic approach to the map and recognize that we shouldn't be weakening the representation on that part of the island that really needs, in all honesty, it lacks the most infrastructure and it has very little access to healthcare, and we need the most help. So I highly suggest that you not split it in half, or you not make it one big, large district, but instead give us a little bit more representation so that people on that side of the island are not struggling and suffering. Thank you again.
Okay, next testifier is Kimiona Kane, followed by Ralph Foyer.
All right. Aloha nui kako, Kimiona Keia, Nohoawo Mai Manalo. Mahalo nui for this time. I'm Kimiona from Waimanalo. I'm the chair for the Waimanalo Neighborhood Board. I just want to acknowledge the commission's corrections to House District 51 and say, you know, genuinely mahalo nui for considering the voices of our communities, both in Waimanalo, Hawaii Kai, as well as Kailua, and acknowledging the Makapu'u wraparound that did not serve any of our communities to the best that it could potentially. Recognizing that, our community and our neighborhood board will be taking up the new maps and into consideration and discussions this week, and we look forward to providing the commission with a consolidated new testimony on behalf of the community of Waimanalo. On my personal as a personal individual of the Waimanalo community, I just want to mahalo the commission again to reiterate the point of acknowledging the Makapu'u Point as the boundary line for House District 51, and encourage that we take a look at the Senate District as well to see what we can do within practicality to move that boundary line back to Hawaii, back to Makapu'u Point. I also wanted to acknowledge Chair Mugiishi as well as Royce and the office staff. You know, at the hearing this past week, you guys took a lot of heat from the different senators that were represented there. And I just want to reiterate that I thought you folks did an incredible job representing the people first and not, you know, the elected officials. You represented the communities and the decisions. You guys took some heat from them. And I just want to acknowledge that you guys did an incredible job, in my opinion, representing the decisions that were made on behalf of the communities that were impacted by this. Granted, you know, this process is established in part to make sure that there is representation, but the representation will change. It's not going to be the same elected people every single round. And so, you know, while we sit back and take a look at how we can engage in this process better, I just want to acknowledge that to the elected officials out there that might be trying to persuade or change decisions on this process. This is not about you and the seat that you hold. This is about the communities in which those representatives will be elected. And so really give the communities the honor and due diligence to provide their voices out in here and, you know, maintain your kuleana in representation when you are elected into that position. But we mahalo the commission. We want to share in our thoughts and look forward to the continual learning that we'll have. We look forward to testifying next week and being present as we continue to learn through this process. But mahalo nui au kou no ke lahana mai kai no ke kai ulu o ke aina o Hawaii nei. Mahalo nui.
Next testifier is Ralph Foyer, followed by Kahi Mederis.
Aloha, commissioners. Can you hear me? Scott, if you could shake your head. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Aloha, Reapportionment Commission members. I'm Ralph Foyer. You've seen me testify before. Thank you for allowing me to testify. I too want to thank the technical committee and the Office of Election staff. I think you guys are working really hard under very difficult circumstances and very difficult timelines. We appreciate those efforts, believe me. We appreciate the efforts, but we believe the plan can be better. I submitted the Hawaii Community Plan. Unfortunately, it's now called the Foyer Plan. There will be people testifying to the Community Plan for Hawaii, and that they're referring to what you're calling the Foyer Plan. Sorry, I guess there's confusion there. I hope that we can get past that. I submitted written testimony, and I'm calling it the Community Plan, but today I'll call it the Foyer Community Plan. I just want to give a brief summary. First and foremost, our plan puts the 8 House districts into the 4 Senate districts. They are contiguous. They remain in there is no overlapping. Okay, so each of the 4 Senate districts would have 2 House districts. We believe this is the best and most logical arrangement. We believe that it will give the residents the best representation. They will have 1 senator and 2 representatives working for their geographic and residential areas. Now, the Foyer Community Plan provides for more equal assignment of residents in each district. Our deviation is only 3.79% versus the Hawaii, the HRC plan's 4.74%. So we did a better job, and that needs to be done. Our plan also, I think, meets the criteria of Article 4, Section 6 of the state constitution better than HRC plan. The HRC plan doesn't meet all of those. We realize that the criteria set forth say, use terms like whenever, it's not whenever possible. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact term, but basically, if you can do it, you shall do it. If it's practicable, I think that's the term, practicable, then you shall do it. So the question becomes, are these changes practicable? Our plan is more practicable and meets the shall requirements better. Under criteria number 4, it says all districts shall be compact. Our districts are more compact than the HRC plan. Under number 6, it says that the districts shall be wholly within the senatorial districts. Our districts are within the senatorial districts, wholly within the senatorial districts. Under 8, it says the commission shall make sure that the districts are do not contain significantly different socioeconomic interests. The HRC plan doesn't do that. The HRC, okay, all right. You have my written testimony. Again, I think our plan better meets the requirements. Mahalo.
Next testifier is Kahi Mederis, followed by Janice Johnson.
Aloha. Aloha. It's Kahi Mederis. I want to also thank you, Chair Mugiishi, and the committee, as well as everyone that worked so hard on the new plan. And as a Waimanalo community resident, I am very happy to see that the Makapu'u border was met. I believe that the new plan represents our community much better than the wraparound. And I also want to echo Kimiona's thought that our Waimanalo neighborhood board will be having meetings over the next few weeks where we will discuss these in our committees, and we will have a better testimony for the next hearing. Again, I want to thank you all. I believe that it looks better. I do also agree about the Senate district that we should be, we are more connected to the Ko'olau districts than we are to the east side districts, the East Honolulu district. So mahalo again to all of you. I just wanted to thank you for your amazing and awesome work. And thank you for hearing our Waimanalo voices. Thank you. Aloha.
Next up is Janice Johnson, followed by Kainoa Kamuhe Ibarego.
Aloha, my name is Janine Johnson, and I'm the secretary to the New Valley Community Association, as well as the Kuli'o'o Kalani'iki Neighborhood Board number 2. I just wanted to let you know that both boards opposed the prior reapportionment plan that divided the Ahupua'a of Niu into 2 separate districts. And I'm glad to see that the reapportion maps are now keeping Niu Valley in its geographic boundary, which is historically been kept for the last 200 years. But I do also agree with Representative Capella, because I am from Konahama, and I believe strongly in everything that she said that should happen with that district, as well as agree with Chair Kane from Waimanalo Neighborhood Board. It's awful to have your community split when you know what should be done with that community. So I just truly ask that you keep going back to the communities that care about these things. Please do not take a political side in any of this, and go with the people in the communities that really should have the decision about this. And I appreciate you all very much. Thank you so much.
Next up is Kainoa Kamuhe Ibarego, followed by Mary Smart.
Mahalo nui. Aloha mai kako, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Kainoa Kaumehiwarego, testifying on behalf of Common Cause Hawaii. We have submitted our written testimony, but would like to take the time to highlight the 4 essential points. First, Common Cause would be remiss if we did not express our appreciation for the time and effort this commission and staff have invested in the critically important task of shaping Hawaii's political and social future. We especially applaud the significant changes made to the proposed legislative reapportion plans that take into account public testimonies and concerns, which of course are in keeping with your responsibilities to the public. Second, we note though that this iteration of the legislative reapportion plan newly divides different communities that hereto have not participated in this process to offer their feedback. Split in 2 or more pieces, the political voice and influence of communities such as Papakolea, which will now be split between House District 26 and 27 in this version of the reapportion plans, will be negatively impacted for the next decade. With that thought in mind, Common Cause respectfully asks this commission to revise the current modified legislative reapportion plan to keep communities like Papakolea whole. Third, Common Cause Hawaii has advocated since the start of 2021 that the reapportionment process take into account incarcerated persons and change the way they're assessed from being counted by facility to being counted by their home addresses. We firmly believe that prison gerrymandering must end. Though the commission couldn't address it this time around, Common Cause Hawaii respectfully asks that the commission include in your report our request for a legislative remedy ensuring incarcerated people are counted according to their communities and not their facilities when you write your report to the Hawaii State Legislature. Lastly, as we are near the finish line, Common Cause Hawaii encourages the commission to continue to take into account public testimony when finalizing maps. Given the significant changes and tight deadlines this commission is facing, Common Cause Hawaii believes the most efficient and effective way to get feedback on how various communities will be impacted is through public testimony. With those points being highlighted, mahalo nui for this opportunity to testify.
Next testifier is Mary Smart, followed by Corey Harding.
Hello, my name is Mary Smart. I'm a Mililani Town resident. And in the past, I was just focusing on Mililani Town because, you know, the breakup into 3 sections up to North Shore was really egregious. And you did repair that. We no longer go to the North Shore, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, an incumbent is now without her district. But what I do object to is that now you've impacted Mililani Mauka. And this is like at the last minute that you've done that, and for no good reason. Mililani Mauka belongs together. Each 2 is the perfect dividing line. I put in other testimony, and yes, you might have to come into Mililani Town a little bit, but the way you've done it does give the impression that some gerrymandering was done to accommodate maybe the Mililani Town resident who used to represent the North Shore. So I really think that you should put Mililani Mauka back together. Then you wouldn't have to come down into Mililani Town as much. And then you wouldn't have to go down to YPO Gentry quite as far. Mililani Town and Mililani Mauka, they're different. We have different neighborhood boards, but we're all under Mililani Town Association. So to minimize bringing in different neighborhoods such as YPO Gentry or any other neighborhood would be the objective. But I do want to thank you. I do question why you haven't used some of the public submissions that really did do a better job than these proposed maps. I haven't gone into detail on how to do it, so I know it's hard. So I appreciate what everybody's done. The 22 reapportionment is an opportunity to put neighborhoods together. The public is begging you to put us together, not divide us for the incumbents. And I do question how you formed Mililani Town. It looks like you're accommodating incumbents, and I hope not. I hope not in the future. Thank you for letting me testify.
Next up is Corey Harden, followed by Trish LaChico.
Hello, Commissioners. Corey Harden from Hilo. Want to thank you for your work on the commission and especially on the new maps. I strongly support the Foyer plan, perhaps with a few tweaks after you folks have public hearings on the new plans. I personally know some of the people who developed the Foyer plan. These people do their homework. They know the community and local politics intimately, and they care deeply about our island. As Ralph said, the Foyer plan meets all 8 criteria in the law, while the commission plan does not. The Foyer plan includes all the House districts inside the Senate districts. And compared to the commission plan, the Foyer plan has lower total deviation. It keeps districts more compact, and it does better as separating rural and urban areas. I also support Shannon Matson's call for well-advertised public hearings on areas affected by the map changes. I'm also concerned about how counting incarcerated people in their home community. And I hope you will support the Foyer plan. Thank you.
Next up is Trish LaChico, followed by Larry Verre.
Aloha, Commissioners. Good afternoon. My name is Trish LaChica. I'm a member of the Mililani Neighborhood Board, mom of 2, raising my family here in Mililani Town, and very active member of the community. Just wanted to express my appreciation in addressing the largest concern that Mililani community residents had, which had split our community into 3 to 4 districts. And I know it's not easy, so thank you to Commissioner Nanaka for drawing the maps. I know it's not ideal, so I'm only speaking to what I see for the Mililani community. But it finally attempts to unify both Mililani Town and Mauka. As you know, Mililani is a master plan community designed to be a single community, sharing the same resources in schools and shopping centers and parks. In my observation, and the new maps would result in a significant shift in the new district lines, resulting in decreasing the current House districts from 3 to 2. District 45, which what Mary had mentioned had stretched all the way up to North Shore, is now belongs to the Wahiawa district. The Senate lines also shift significantly, with now the senator from Wahiawa getting larger portions of Mililani Town. Mililani Town will now have 2 representatives. Our 2 current senators do work together. I do echo the concerns raised by Mary Smart that the new District 38, which kind of the 2 new House districts, kind of the split makes it like there's an upper Mililani and a lower Mililani, which includes both portions of town and Mauka in the 2 districts. While I can't complain that it now unifies both town and Mauka, it is pretty clear that there is some gerrymandering in how those lines preserve an incumbent. And finally, my only comment is YPO Acres, which is now part of the Wahiawa House District. And just my comment is, if you can please consider including it in, I think it would be District 38, because the families that reside in YPO Acres, the oldest portion of Mililani, go to Mililani High School and go to Kipapa L. And so it would, putting them together with Wahiawa would be with a representative who doesn't cover those schools. That's it, and just wanted to again express my appreciation for the attempts to unify our beautiful community. Mahalo.
Next up is Larry Verre, followed by Bart Dane.
Well, good afternoon, aloha, Chair Miguchi and commissioners. I'm Larry Veray, and as Chair of the Pearl City Neighborhood Board 21, this is my third testimony to your commission and our board's continued strong opposition to the State Reapportionment Commission and Technical Committee's latest revised maps for the Senate redistricting for Pearl City. We have no issues with what you've done for the House. We're good to go. We only got 2 districts, but I'm sorry, I'm hearing all these accolades. I have no accolades for you guys right now. Chair Miguchi, I'm directing my comments directly to you as leader and chair of the commission. It's your responsibility to make sure that the public is heard and their input is fairly considered for the development of a new redistricting plan. You heard my previous testimony. My question is, did you inform the technical committee to review and consider the Pearl City Neighborhood Board inputs? Okay. Why does Pearl City continue to be carved up into 4 Senate districts? If the commission plan is adopted, do you really think we're going to get the care and feeding from all 4 senators equally, especially when District 15's primary focus is Salt Lake and Pearl Harbor, and Senate District 17's focus is Mililani? Where do you think Pearl City will be prioritized with these 2 districts? Matter of fact, District 15 is falling into where I call the pit city of Pearl City, where I got all my problems. They're not going to listen to me. So the District 16 and 19 is what we want for Pearl City. I ask, please make this happen. This is Larry Veray's opinion and only my opinion. The following is where your commission has failed the public. Technical committee is working in a vacuum, stovepipe, lack of collaboration with the public testifiers who wanted to help the commission, help you guys develop a successful Senate plan. The technical committee has demonstrated a lack of respect and no direct feedback to the neighborhood board chairs who dedicated much of their personal time to help the commission, all of you, succeed in your goals through their testimony and the many hours of research and helping develop a fair district plan. My accolade goes out to Bill Hicks because he put a lot of time on this, and Pearl City Neighborhood Board supports the Hicks plan because it puts us in 2 districts. No questions from your technical committee to the board chairs who know their neighborhood areas and their residents. The technical committee revised the districts and failed to integrate the public's positive, creative, and innovative recommended solutions that would lead the commission to success with a collaborative redistricting plan. Please note my words, collaboration. Easy fix for Pearl City. Something smells really bad, gentlemen, and I'm going to tell you, it's so easy to take that line for District 15 and 16, move it down to the Pearl City bike trail, and we'll be good with that. 15's out of my picture from my meetings. And if you take Mililani, District 17, it comes down all the way down to the H1, H2 merge. There is no population from that point all the way up to Kahuku Boulevard. Why that was brought down there, I have no clue. Nobody's living there yet, but I got a sneaky suspicion, but it's with the thing. But anyway, in closing, I strongly ask you to please support our plans, and I'm ready for your phone call. Thank you very much.
Next up is Bart Dane, followed by Lisa Bishop.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I have a lot to fit into 3 minutes, so I will talk quickly. Let me start by making a brief comment about Monday's Senate hearing. I had predicted in advance on social media that Senator De La Cruz would use the occasion to bully, and that's the word I used in advance, bully the technical staff. But I was still appalled at the level of abuse that occurred. Witnesses participating in a public hearing have a right to expect the discussion will be conducted in an orderly and civil fashion. I think the Senate failed to provide that environment that time. Let me say I felt proud, and this is an odd word to use, but I felt proud as I watched David Rosenbrock, Royce Jones, and Chair Muguishi stand up to the abuse. It really actually, that word describes how I felt. I like you guys despite us butting heads. In particular, I want to compliment Chair Muguishi for his explanation of how the commission had interpreted Act 14. I'd like to hear a full discussion on the disputed interpretations of Act 14. If we can have such a discussion without the attorney saying that's privileged information. Turning to the maps, I think the latest version of the maps for Oahu is greatly improved over previous versions. I will admit I am disappointed by the Senate map for Oahu that divides both Kaneohe and Kailua towns. But after hearing Dylan Nonaka's explanation, I can see there is a rational basis for the decisions that were made. What I'm wondering is why the technical committee did not avail itself of the opportunity to provide a similar explanation and overview when they first presented the proposed plans and then when they proposed the initial final plans. I think it would have helped spread more public understanding and perhaps more trust. Looking at the house map for Oahu, I'm pleased to see that HD 26, the new Makiki district, has been redrawn to better comply with standard redistricting criteria. But I want to call attention to the way the Hawaiian homestead community of Papakolea has been split. I believe this was unintentional, and I wonder if it can be repaired by shifting some of the other borders around slightly. I'm hoping that there's time to do that. Finally, Bill Hicks has discovered a requirement in the law that the House districts be drawn entirely within a Senate district to the extent practicable. I will admit I had never paid attention to this criterion before, perhaps because it had not been practical in previous cycles. However, in this cycle, the stars have aligned, the math has aligned, and it's a perfect opportunity to implement this criterion if we want to follow the law. Hawaii Island has 8 House districts, which make 4 Senate districts. Maui has 6 House districts, which can become 3 Senate districts. And Oahu, magic of all magic, 34 House districts perfectly can fit into 17 Senate districts. I heard Dylan Nonaka's explanation for why Bill was wrong about the congressional, but I don't follow the logic for the House and Senate maps. Can we get an explanation on this, please? Thank you very much. If you ask me questions, I might even say more nice things about you guys.
Secretary, before we go on to the next testifier, I see Commissioner Kennedy has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, Chair Mugiishi. As I'm listening, and it's funny because the last 2 or 3 testifiers I was trying to get back to, I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name, but Bart just brought it up. So I don't know, again, I'll ask the question about, they're talking about the Senate and House and the law. So I don't know if I can ask Bill Hicks to share his recipe again, or if it's appropriate to ask the commissioners if we're practical, they were trying to follow that law, because it does look like, I was taking notes that there could be 1 Senate district with 6 House of Representative persons with 1 senator. I mean, I don't understand how that would work. And then again, 1 House that crosses 4 Senate, as these people were just sharing. So I'm not sure I can ask Bill to expound on his recipe on if his plan answered to this at all, or if I can ask Dylan to help me understand if you guys were paying attention to that as well, and it just couldn't happen, right? It just wasn't feasible. So I'm not sure who to direct the question at, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about Bill Hicks's recipe, if that's appropriate, or ask Dylan if he can help us understand about how that's going to work.
Yeah, so I think the best way to do that, since we're in the testimony side and we want to give all the members of the public the opportunity to express their opinions, that we finish that. And at the end, you can ask your question again to Commissioner Nonaka as we have our discussion about issues that came up during the testimony.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Next testifier is Lisa Bishop, followed by Brenda Wall.
Aloha, Chair Mugiishi and Reapportionment Commission members. I am Lisa Bishop, a resident of Oahu. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify today. Also, mahalo for reinstating Makapu'u Point as a natural geographic boundary between House Districts 51 and the new House District 18, as you redrew maps with the revised final extraction numbers. However, as has just been brought up, the new Senate plan does not recognize Makapu'u Point as a natural geographic boundary and does not align entire House districts into Senate districts. With 17 Senate and 34 House districts, it is feasible and practicable to make the House districts the best they can be and then combine 2 House districts to form each Senate district on each of the islands. The Constitution calls for representative districts to be wholly included within 1 Senate district. In the current redistricting draft, only 9 House districts on Oahu are wholly inside 1 Senate district. Some cross over up to 4 Senate districts. Please review the new Oahu Senate and Senate Hicks plans that demonstrate that every constitutional and HRS criteria is indeed practicable. Using those plans as an example, I urge you to apply the state constitutional mandates to the Senate districts as well. Finally, the U.S. congressional delegation district should be drawn last, not first. So I recommend that they also need to be adjusted in this process. Let's get it right this time. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Mahalo.
Next up is Brenda Wong, followed by Shannon Matson.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Brenda Wong, living in Waimanalo right now. And I want to thank the commission for your hard work on all this, all these lines that you're drawing. I'm a Waimanalo homeowner, and I just want to thank you for hearing us and trying to preserve our unique community in Waimanalo. Thank you for hearing our voices about the boundaries and for moving the boundaries back in the House to the Makapu'u point, and your desire to work with us with the Senate to get it back down to the Makapu'u point. I appreciate you working with our neighborhood board chair, Kimiona, who represents all of us, and just wanted to cast the voice of a regular person out there to appreciate you for listening and reminding you that what matters is not what politicians want, as was stated earlier, but the voices of the people living in the communities and our unique place and our unique challenges and our interests. And in regards to the lines with Kailua, Waimanalo, and Hawaii Kai, I urge you to continue to work with the boards and to hear the cries of the community. So thank you, and I appreciate your voice, listening to our voices and moving in the direction where we feel like our communities are represented. Thank you.
Next up is Shannon Matson, followed by May Mizuno.
Aloha, commissioners. This is Shannon Matson. I wanted to start by saying, while I appreciate the efforts of the commissioners and staff working through the unprecedented times of COVID, and of course on an extreme deadline, and due to a host of other obstacles, I still want to make sure that we are not pushing these maps through. I think it is so important that we have time to adequately receive public testimony. And I heard you, Chair, mention that there will be times next week. I'm hopeful that those will be published right away on the website, and that there will be some evening times, some times that might work for folks who are working or otherwise might be unavailable to meet at this 1 p.m. time. I think it's just as important as when the original maps were proposed to make sure that there's adequate time for folks to testify. I want to see that those meetings are advertised as widely as possible as well. I would also like to make a request of the staff regarding the way that our maps are being presented right now. They're just an overlay on top of the technical committee's maps. And I think that it's hard for the public to really see adequately what those maps look like. They're confusing and difficult to understand. I'm wondering if the staff would be able to put up maps similar to how they did in the first round of proposed maps, so that the public can really see side by side what those comparisons are. I've conducted a review of all the maps that were submitted for Hawaii Island. I'm not weighing in on anything happening on Oahu, that's out of my purview. But I do have a lot of thoughts on what's happening here, and I'm strongly opposed to the technical committee's proposal for a variety of reasons. While I appreciate that it's a good deviation number, I think that a lot of the criteria are being violated. Number 4, insofar as practicable, districts shall be compact. That is definitely not happening. I mean, again, as previous testifiers have said, it's a pretty obvious violation. Number 6, where practicable, representative districts shall be wholly included within senatorial districts. That's never been possible before, having 7 House districts compared to the 4 Senate districts. Now that we have 8 House districts to 4 Senate districts, it's absolutely practicable for this criteria to be met. Foyer's plan absolutely does that, follows the Senate lines perfectly. So it's definitely possible. It's been done. The work is there. I would really like to hear an analysis by the technical committee as far as why they are not following that. Commissioner Nonaka mentioned a few things that I have some questions on. One of them is Waipio Valley. He stated that the publicly submitted maps are cutting off Waipio Valley. I don't see that anywhere in there. He also stated that it was just based on the population. Kona had to be split in half. Hilo had to be split in half based on the way that the commissioner tech committee is drawing their maps. All of the other map makers were able to do this with able to follow the lines and keep the deviation numbers pretty reasonable without doing that. I'm sorry, I know I'm over my time. I did submit written comments, and I will probably be testifying next week as well. But I am confused about the Waipio Valley comment, and I also just wanted to draw attention to the fact that the other map makers, Foyer's plan and Kasau's plan, definitely do a better job of meeting those criteria. Thank you.
Okay, next up is May Mizuno, followed by Ian Ross.
Aloha and good afternoon, Chair, Dr. Mark Mugiishi, and members of the Commission. My name is May Mizuno. I am Kalihi Valley resident and currently the chair of Kalihi Valley Neighborhood Board number 16. However, I am testifying today as an individual citizen and a longtime resident and community advocate of Kalihi Valley and the entire state of Hawaii. I stand in strong support of the Commission's new proposed and modified final redistricting plan, and I want to reiterate what I have said the last time I testified. I understand that there is a process, and part of the process is to allow individuals to submit their own plan. However, some individuals may submit their own proposal with the intent to have personal gain or to force blue-collar districts like our district, which already have the highest density of public housing and prisons, to be cut up, thus becoming fragmented because of the desire of rich districts. One of the reasons why I support the Commission's proposed final draft is because I trust that this has been done thoroughly with no hidden agenda and is fair for everyone. Kalihi Valley is a blue-collar working community, and a significant number of us are immigrants, and we normally are quiet and we do not complain or speak up because our community is united and we all work closely together as one Ohana just to make ends meet and live in peace. We do not complain that we have the highest number of public housing in our community. We do not complain that we have the Oahu Community Correctional Facility or Center in Lower Kalihi. We do not grumble because we care. The rich communities never want public housing or a prison in their community. Kalihi Valley community needs to be intact as we are a unique and united community. Dividing us is the same as dividing a family, and this is detrimental to all of us Kalihi residents. We are also the only district in the state to have established the RPZ, or the restricted parking zone, to ensure adequate parking for the area residents. Kalihi Valley was able to achieve this program by being united. If Kalihi is split through Likiliki Highway, it will divide the current RPZ in half and will adversely affect the ability to finalize the RPZ program, which will eventually become the blueprint for other districts in the state to implement. We thank the Commission and staff for listening to people from all districts, objective and fair plan. The blue-collar community of Kalihi Valley thanks you for listening to our concerns and addressing them in a prudent manner. Thank you for your faithful hard work. Kudos to all of you. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify. Aloha.
Next up is Ian Ross, followed by Phil Barnes.
Thank you very much. Aloha, Chair and Reapportionment Commissioners. I'm grateful for the opportunity to submit testimony at today's hearing. As always, I want to voice my appreciation to each of you for taking the time to put in the hard work on this. My name is Ian Ross, and I'm a Makiki resident advocate for my community. As chair of the Makiki Lower Punch Bowl Tantalus Neighborhood Board, I'd like to note at this hearing, as well as I had the previous hearing, the last hearing rather, that the board has now joined others in submitting an official statement. However, I'm here currently in my personal capacity and also submitted written testimony in my personal capacity. I want to start by recognizing that significant improvements have been made, and this map is close to meeting the request that I have made to the commission during my previous times testifying. However, I am testifying in opposition today to the modified redistricting plans based on the adopted revised permanent resident population data adopted on 1/6/22. Due to possible negative social and economic impacts on a Native Hawaiian community in my area, as well as issues with the proposed boundary between Makiki and Manoa. If possible, I'd like it if the commissioners could draw their attention to the proposed 27, 26, and 22. It might be helpful as I continue my testimony. This proposal limits the capacity of those living in Hawaiian homelands of Papukolea, Kewalo, and Kalawahine from expressing their concerns and political preferences together. This occurs because these communities are bisected between the proposed House Districts 26 and 27. The area be generally labeled Makiki Heights, as it doesn't, I believe, label these individual specific communities. I recognize that this placement of the boundary line may have been made unintentionally while the Reapportionment Commission was working diligently to resolve concerns of other communities. I reached out and spoke with community leaders from this area, and I know they're testifying. So I'd like to draw your attention, if they have verbal testimony today, and to the written testimony that continues to come in. I know some will be late. It took time for them to activate, understand this issue, and submit testimony. But I do hope that you will look at this testimony, even if it comes in late. Now, I have no personal preference for which House district these communities should be included in, just that they remain intact. However, in corresponding with local leaders, there appears to be a general preference for being included in House District 26. I believe any potential difference in population could be resolved by shifting the boundary around Punch Bowl, and that way you're just interacting with two districts and not bringing knock-on effects elsewhere. Additionally, in speaking with neighbors in the area around Nehoa Street and Dominus, near the border of the proposed House District 26 and 22, I found a general feeling that too much of Makiki is in the Manoa district. So if you need time to look at that as well, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration.
Next testifier is Phil Barnes, followed by Ariel Murphy.
Okay, yeah. I'll try and keep this brief. I submitted written testimony. Just one point I would really like to build on, and that's the division between urban areas and rural areas. We keep talking in this state about increasing our self-sufficiency agriculturally, and the only way that's ever going to happen is if our rural districts are giving more adequate representation than we have at present. The map that was created, your original draft map, places me in House District 1. I live 3 blocks. I'm in Hilo, by the way. I live 3 blocks from the Hilo downtown post office, and yet this puts me in a district that runs all the way past Honoka'a. That district does not represent my interests. I don't represent its interest. So I'd like to speak in favor of the plan created by Ralph Foyer and a group of concerned citizens. By using the Senate maps, it keeps it very clean. I would be in a Hilo district, which, you know, seems like it represents me better. And it keeps it very simple. And that's enough said. Thank you. And mahalo.
Next up is Ariel Murphy, followed by Roberta.
Aloha, aloha, can you hear me?
Yes.
Aloha, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ariel Murphy from the Puna district of the Big Island. I support the Foyer community plan for 5 reasons. And the first reason, and this is very important, is that the Foyer community plan meets the requirements of law, our constitution. Second, the Foyer community plan was community prepared. A lot of people from all over the Big Island discussed this plan, and I know that because I was present. A lot of people from the Hamakua Coast, from Kona, from Kohala, from Ka'u were present in that discussion. I don't know if the technical committee's plan was similarly participated in by a lot of people from the Big Island. My third reason for supporting the Foyer community plan is that it places Puna subdivisions within Puna districts and not mixed within Hilo districts, like the Technical Commission's plan does. Most of Puna are rural in nature and Hilo is mostly urbanized. Puna needs are certainly very, very different from Hilo needs. And my fourth reason for supporting the Foyer community plan is that it very neatly places 2 House districts for each of the Big Island's 4 Senate districts, whereas the technical committee's plan has overlapping House districts within Senate districts. And my fifth reason for supporting the Foyer community plan is because it has the best deviation rate. The House Technical Group's plan has a deviation rate of 4.74%, while the Foyer plan's deviation rate is lesser at 3.79 deviation rate. So please follow the Constitution and adopt the Foyer community plan for the Big Island. Mahalo to everyone. You worked so hard on this. Let's not screw it. Aloha.
Next up is Roberta, followed by Mary Marvin Porter.
Aloha, Commissioners. My name is Roberta Mayer, and I am President of the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board. I would like to acknowledge the technical group's redrawn maps that retain Makapu'u Point as the boundary between House Districts 51 and the new House District 18. I greatly appreciate the changes made that reflect our community's input to keep the neighborhoods of Hawaii Kai, Waimanalo, and Kailua as intact communities. I am disappointed, however, that the technical group did not seize this opportunity to align the Senate district maps by reestablishing Makapu'u Point as the boundary between Senate Districts 9 and 25. The Senate district maps submitted by Bill Hicks demonstrate that it is very possible to retain Makapu'u Point as the boundary for the Senate district maps as well. However, if it is not practicable to do this during this reapportionment cycle because of time constraints, I urge that the realignment of Senate districts to reestablish Makapu'u Point as a natural boundary line remain a goal in the future cycle. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. I very much appreciate the efforts of the technical group and the commission members to be responsive to the community's voice. Mahalo nui.
Next up is Mary Marvin Porter, followed by Kapohu o Lahaina.
Aloha. So I support the Foyer community plan, and I think many good things have been said, and I don't really need to repeat it. I also have here John Olson, who supports the Foyer plan, and I'll let John say a few words.
Well, this is,
There you are.
okay, there I am. Kind of cheating on this, I guess, but anyway, yeah, I'm here to support the Foyer plan too. The inconsistencies that I see in regard to Puna is where you're tying Upper Puna, which is entirely agricultural, large lot in nature, and Hilo, which is residential and commercial. And that's not going to serve either group. So an adjustment there is going to have to be required. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Kapoho o Lahaina, followed by Winston Welch.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Kapoho o Lahaina, Pamonese, 50-year plus resident in Waimanalo, Kanaka Maoli. And I just want to mahalo the commission and the committee for graciously listening to the voice of our Waimanalo community, especially with our board leaders, Kimiona, Kani, and Kahi Mederis. For the record, I'd like to also show my agreement in their testimony. I also am quite happy, as many of us in the community, for you meeting the Makapu'u border. Also, again, to echo about the Senate district, we'd like it to be kept with the Ko'olau districts, that, we're more in connection to our overlapping corresponding concerns and issues with those districts seem to affect us with common ground. I'm very disappointed to hear that you've been taking heat from the Senate, especially when you're giving your earnest to listen to the voice of we the people, who they should be prioritizing first, not themselves or special interests. So mahalo for taking that heat. Maybe we need to give them some heat back. Public trust, not division, should always be the foremost ethical priority when serving in these capacities. I just want to say God bless you all, and may Akua continue to guide you all in this process to represent our voices for the best interests and in fairness for all the different people and communities. Mahalo.
Next up is Winston Welch, followed by Becky Gardner.
Yeah, aloha. Thank you for your work on this issue of reapportionment. And we know that this is the bedrock of our democracy, and we must get it right to ensure trust, accountability, and fairness for all. Although I am the executive director of the Outdoor Circle statewide, I have also served on Neighborhood Board 5, which is Diamond Head, Kapahulu, St. Louis Heights. But I am testifying as a private citizen today who's active in the area. I do know, however, that the Diamond Head, Kapahulu, St. Louis Heights Neighborhood Board submitted opposition to the original plan. I do want to express my appreciation for the recently improved plan before you by the final technical committee, but recognize we still have a ways to go, and I support the revised Hicks plan of January 9th, which meets a number of constitutionally mandated requirements as set forth in the Hawaii State Constitution, which you've heard before, that districts be compact, contiguous, follow easily recognized features, House districts be contained within Senate districts, and population deviations be minimized. These are not suggestions, they're practical and reasonable. I will speak to my area of the city specifically. The final technical plan divides Diamond Head area unnaturally into two Senate districts, namely Senate District 9, as proposed in the plan, combines two disparate areas, such as the Gold Coast on Kapiolani Park and Kapahulu Fire Station, with areas extending to eastern Maunalua Bay, almost to Costco. This contracts with the Hicks plan, which keeps East Honolulu as a whole entity, ending naturally at Makapu'u at Senate District 9, and keeps the surrounding Diamond Head area naturally within Senate District 10. The revised Hicks plan also keeps Diamond Head House District 20 completely within Senate District 25. The final technical committee plan illogically and unnaturally joins the residential area behind Kapahulu Safeway to House District 23, which itself is proposed to extend to the area around Walmart. This plan breaks the Kapahulu neighborhood unnecessarily and is against guidelines, and I would urge the commission to rejoin that residential area behind Kapahulu Safeway together again with the area behind, including up to the Manoa Stream where it joins Kapilani at Market City. There's one specific final suggestion that I have, and that is for any plan that the non-residential areas that include Kaimuki High School, Crane Park, and Market City Shopping Center be included in the Diamond Head House District 20 and Senate District 9 as proposed in the revised Hicks plan. This combined non-residential area has traditionally been included in the Diamond Head Kapahulu St. Louis region and is part of our neighborhood board number 5. It's on the same side of the Manoa Pololo stream. It's integrally connected via backyards, literally, with the Kapahulu neighborhood, and it should be reattached to House District 20 in any plan that you come up with, and certainly not attached to House District 23 nor any other district. There are other examples that other testifiers have addressed where the final technical committee plan does not seem to meet constitutional requirements, and I urge you to consider the revised Hicks plan, neighborhood board, excellent addition from others before you for reapportionment. Thank you for your time and service. Aloha.
Next testifier is Becky Gardner.
Aloha, commissioners. Hi, Becky Gardner, owner and principal of Policy Matters LLC, testifying on behalf of myself, Kaimuki resident. I want to first thank the commission for the vote they took. Was it on the 3rd or the 6th? The recent vote on the step 1 process on the extraction. I think that was the constitutionally valid, proper and correct way to vote. So thank you for listening to my testimony and to the many of us who've been advocating for that step 1 extraction. I also want to thank especially the chair and the Reapportionment Commission staff for their performance at the Senate legislative briefing on Monday. My impression were that the conditions of that hearing were rather hostile to the decision that the commission made. And I thought that the chair had represented well the rigor with which you've grappled with these questions and the will of the people behind your decision. So thank you for your representation of your duties in that hearing. I just want to comment, Act 14 was rather confusing for me. I read it several times, I was trying to understand what they were trying to accomplish. And, if anyone's ever worked in the courts, you know that Constitution trumps statute. You can't overrule the Constitution. And then when you have an ambiguous term in a statute, you first look at the plain language of the statute. And if that's not clear, then you should look at the legislative history. And so I put in my testimony, I just submitted it, so it's probably not before you right now, but I went through and I looked at the legislative history of Act 14 and the committee reports and also the Attorney General's opinions on this. And that's in my testimony. So if you want to go and take a look and see what the history is and just sort of the crazy history, because it's had several iterations, that language. You can take a look at my testimony. I do want to comment, there was mention of reservations on the vote, but it seems to me now that the commission staff and the military, the programmers, you kind of cracked a code and you've leveled up and you have a much better process. So I would encourage this commission to really carefully outline that process in your final report. So legislators in the future will have that to consult. And, finally on the maps, I really like Bill Hicks's characterization of it as like a recipe. And I understand that there are a lot of folks here who submitted plans contemporaneously with the technical committee's plans. So I don't think you all had a chance to look at each other's. So I encourage everyone who's working on maps to check out what everyone else has done, just to honor the intent of the Constitution, because I think we're pretty close. So with that, aloha.
Chair, there are no further testifiers.
Thank you. Just want to make sure there are no other public testifiers who would like to raise their hand at this point.
I don't see any.
Okay, if not, I'll go back to Commissioner Kennedy. You had a question that maybe either, well, actually I see a hand go up, so maybe we'll take that before we go to.
Next testifier is Luisa Chiave.
Aloha Chair and the Technical Committee. My name is Louisa Chiave, a resident of Waimanalo. I want to say this from my heart to the Commissioner and also to all of you that's been open as far as with this reapportion, you know. Whew. Of meetings that we've been having. Mahalo for saving District 51 and District 18 to remain as is. And most of all, mahalo for hearing the verbal and written testimonies by the people of Hawaii and our neighborhood board district chairs. I may not as far as understand everything, but I mahalo you all much from my heart, the commissioners, for your hard work and challenges that you all been as far as not only the position that you hold, but for who you are individually also. I appreciate all your time and also being our, I'm gonna use the word referee in our meetings that we have come to be able to have one today. This is my testimony. Mahalo.
Next testifier is Claire Tamamoto.
Hi, sorry. Good afternoon. I got the days mixed up. Thank you for allowing me to testify this afternoon. I would like to speak in favor of the Reapportionment Commission's final or one of their final proposed draft of January 12th or 13th of this year. I think I testified before in the Central Oahu testimony. I think I'm a 69-year-old resident of Aiea. For 40-something years of those 69 years as I relocated back in Aiea, I've been a community advocate. We've gone through many types of reapportionments and at the city level, at the state level, and we have tended to go with the flow, accepting various representations from different areas of multiple representing multiple areas. And at first we didn't appreciate it as much. But I would like the commission to remember, and all of the other people in this meeting to remember that we are an island community. What happens on the island of Oahu impacts all of us. Red Hill is a perfect example of that. When we talk about the issue of the Red Hill tanks, although it's located in Aiea area, it provides water for all over, and any kind of pollution will impact the island's water source. So I think we have to be mindful that we are that island community, and if to have multiple representation from different parts of the island is so important and so critical. All the legislatures should understand the issues of all the different communities. So I think having multiple areas represented should be even better than just having one single representative. Our reapportionment map in the House side especially divides Aiea along major roadways, which I think are it's sensible. It's a sensible way to do it. People have worked really hard at putting these maps together, and no one can please everybody all the time. But I think what we have to do is respect the work that was done by the commission, put out the map, and learn to work together. Everybody needs to work together, and so we can have a better Oahu and then a better state of Hawaii. So thank you much for letting me speak. There are many people that don't speak in our area because they tend to be older and less active or vocal, by nature, less vocal. But we have made many sacrifices in our Aiea community or the Central Oahu community. And I think we should be at least allowed to keep our representation the way the commission has worked out. So I support the commission's proposed map. That's all.
Chair, there are no further testifiers.
Thank you so much to everybody from the public who provided testimony. As we mentioned earlier, and I hope as our history has shown, we're not asking you to speak for nothing. We hear you, we take it back, we consider it. Hearing doesn't mean agree and eventually implement. There's so many factors involved in this. It does mean we will consider and discuss, and and if it's appropriate, we will change as we have, and you have evidence of that. I just want to go back. I know at one point Commissioner Kennedy had a question that at the time I thought was most appropriately answered by Commissioner Nonaka because he had talked about it before, but would invite any of the technical committee members to answer. So maybe Commissioner Kennedy, if you can just restate your question so that any of them who would like to respond are able to.
Sure. I don't envy the technical committee at all because as they shared previously, anytime they take into consideration anything and make a move, it has a cascading effect. So I want to say thank you as a commissioner to those guys that have been diligently trying to figure this out. The question that I was trying to ask previously, I feel like if I can get one of the commissioners from the technical committee to help us understand, it will stop, moving forward a lot of testimony on that situation. So basically, I'm just trying to make sure that the commission, and I wrote it down to make it easier, if we can address the Senate districts crossing 6 House districts and vice versa, like with House 28 and 34, they're crossing 4 Senate districts, right? So I feel like it'd go a long way, Dale, or one of you guys, if you could just share that you actually did take that into consideration, or if you didn't, why, or how you guys put that together, just so everyone knows that you're looking at both sides of the law and trying to do this, to the best of your ability. But can you share your thoughts on how that, Senate crossing House and House crossing Senate was taken a look at?
I'd like to answer that, Robin. Senator Kidani happens to be my senator. She now, right now, as we said, has 5 representatives in her Senate district. They have worked very well together, done a whole lot of things for the community. And I just think having people working together like that is more important than just taking away numbers. I mean, she will tell you quite honestly that it's worked very well for her. Got to know districts that maybe you would not know if you only had 2. And I'm going to go back to what Clara said. We're one island. We all have one focus, and it's to make life better. And she's brought up Red Hill, and that is a huge factor right now. Not only is it impacting Red Hill, but it's impacting all of our water. And I think people are forgetting that it's not just about one little community, but it is about the island.
Okay, so.
And let's also take into account that interpretation of the Constitution is everybody's opinion. And we can do all of the things that people say that are commenting that are not constitutional, and then I can find 6 more reasons why that reason, once we make that change, is not constitutional too. So again, this goes back to not everybody's going to be happy. Clearly, after we address many things, there's still many unhappy people, but I'm looking over the public submissions, and I have been since they came in, and I can point out just as many flaws and inconsistencies with the constitutional and statutory guidelines as anybody else can. So I cannot individually, I'm not going to individually criticize people's submissions, but the reality is that there are communities on those maps that unite Hauula with Waikele in central Oahu. And I mean, you do stuff like that, those communities would complain just as heavily as the ones that we're hearing from the last couple of months. So I just think there's no way to satisfy everybody's constitutional guideline or everybody's interpretation of a constitutional guideline, and that's why there's where practicable language in the statute. And we all just got to make the best decision possible to meet those guidelines, and try and do the best job we can.
So I guess the bottom line is you guys did take that into consideration. It just wasn't practicable.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to do a lot of arbitrary splitting. I mean, there's areas in these maps where Waikele, for example, in central Oahu is split into 3 different house districts. So again, it just depends on where you're looking if you focus in on one area, you can find things to criticize, that you can find something in the Constitution that it violates. But if you're trying to do where practicable all the way around, deal with deviations, deal with keeping communities together, there's a lot of communities who like the district that they have and don't want to see it change very much. And that's something that we have to take into consideration too. If we just arbitrarily stick districts within other districts, it's going to greatly change the historic districts that have existed for decades. And so that's another consideration that's got to be taken into account, is we don't just arbitrarily draw lines to fit population bases and constitutional requirements that, our interpretation of a constitutional requirement. We got to take a lot of other things into account. And I fully respect everybody's opinion that our job wasn't perfect, but I don't think anybody's would be in everybody's eyes. So
That's awesome. Okay, thank you.
I think, Commissioner Nakota, Commissioner Kennedy, Commissioner Nonaka, thanks for that discussion, because I think what it articulates well is that we are, as a commission, considering all of those statutory requirements and constitutional requirements that is asked of us. And we are doing our best to make sure, to the extent that it's practicable, that we are following them, but sometimes they're in conflict with each other. And that's why we have a commission rather than a computer program drawing these lines. It's because human beings who are going to care about people and individual neighborhoods are going to make judgment calls on what's the best way to make a practical decision about a conflict between two principles. And that's why I think, I've said it about 4 times already, but I really do appreciate the work of the technical committee, because they've been doing this now for weeks, months, and for the last few days, every single hour of the day, to try and consider all of those factors, because we're going to affect people. And so we're going to follow the Constitution, we're going to follow the law, and we're going to do our best to take care of people. So thank you again. Commissioner Chun, you have your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, I was not on the technical committee, and I know the maps we're discussing have to do with the Big Island and Oahu, but I'd just like to comment on speaking to this topic, I'd just like to comment on a generalization and assumption concerning Maui that was raised in testimony that I would like to clarify, and it kind of speaks to this discussion. So here on Maui, as an example, shifts in population and differing rates of growth in population between Central Maui and West Maui have necessitated the movement of a House district lines across large expanses of unpopulated lands, essentially connecting Wailuku with parts of Lahaina. And that said, the public in Central Maui, which of course is our population center, has expressed an interest in at least, at minimum, having representation by a Central Maui House member or a Central Maui senator. So in order to meet this goal, on Maui, it became infeasible to neatly and nicely align 2 House districts with 1 Senate district, as has been the case in the past, and still meet the mandate of balancing populations between districts. So I would just submit that it's not practicable or even preferable necessarily to be hamstrung with the idea of aligning 2 House districts and 1 Senate district in every instance throughout the state of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Chan. Commissioner Nishimura, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of echoing or adding on to Commissioner Chan's statements, I think one of the things that has become more and more evident over the past few weeks is, the extent to which the technical group has listened and incorporated all of the comments into their current maps. And, I really take my hat off to them, and am even more appreciative that they've been able to turn around these maps in such a short time. And I'd also like to, acknowledge, the maps that the public has put out in equally short time. And, as Dylan has said, that, at the end of the day, we all have our opinions, and at the same time, be able to respect the opinions of others and work toward the betterment of the community. And also like to acknowledge and compliment our chair for being such a good leader for all of us. I think you've done excellent job dealing with not just the commission and the public, but the legislators and others as well. And just wanted to, put those points in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, mahalo. I just want to, before we adjourn, I just wanted to share that, yes, there will be several meetings next week to hear more public feedback. And I know there was one concern is there going to be time for people who might be working? And yes, we will have a Saturday commission meeting. These will all be posted tomorrow with agendas to the Office of Elections website, so people can go there and make sure that they're aware of the commission meetings and when they can come and provide testimony. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is adjournment. And I want to thank everyone for participating in today's meeting. And as there is no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, so Commissioner Nakota, motion to adjourn. Commissioner Kennedy, second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Secretary, can you take the vote, please?
Commissioner Chipchase,
Aye.
Commissioner Chun,
Hey,
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Nakota,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Naka,
Aye.
Commissioner Ono,
Aye.
Commissioner Rathbun,
Aye.
Chair Muguishi,
Aye.
Chair, the motion carries.
Mahalo, everybody. We'll see you next week at the next commission meeting.